Okay, so the intention today is to do a guided journey through the hero's journey from pure divine love out through the layers of becoming and home again as a sort of meditative, internal subjective journey in awareness. So we start at home in the love that we are, the silent, radiant source of pure divinity, which is right here present to itself, forever knowing itself within itself, never leaving itself. This is the purest vibration, the purest radiance that can be touched into in this moment. This is your source. This is the pure awareness that shines out from the source, divinity, pure awareness shining from the sun of divinity. And this is what you are. This is what I am. This is that I am. It's what is. It's what is and it's what I am. Pure awareness shining from pure love as sunlight shining from the sun. A relationship without two. The sunlight is not separate from the sun itself. It is just a quality of the sun. And yet we can call it a creation of the sun, at the same time knowing that there is no separation, though the sunlight is the sun. And this is the awareness by which we experience ourself. So it's your awareness. It's the awareness that I am. This awareness that allows me to know that I am. I am that I am. So this pure awareness is purely aware of itself. And within itself, it becomes of a subtle vibration that creates something for awareness to become aware of. And this is what is sometimes called the three-part split of the awareness. The vibration becomes the object of awareness, and then there's the process of observing. 3 parts: awareness, the object, and the process of observing. 3 parts. And this is the first emanation of what is into expression. Awareness, the process of observing, and then the object of observation. At first, it only emanates as the most subtle forays into expression. And these expressions are so fine that they really never become separate from source in any substantial way. But it's the exploration of very subtle qualities, almost like the sun. If we look at the sun and the solar flares, we could say, are these first expressions. They don't really leave the sun. They're right there on the edge of becoming. And so these are very blissful qualities that just bubble out of source awareness and then fall back into source, and bubble out and fall back in. And this repetitive process of expanding out and falling back into source is a refining process. And it's a process of self-discovery for source itself. And as this continues, the expressions come further and further out from source, further and further forays. The first expressions form the framework for even further expressions. they become stable within themselves, stable expressions that allow for further explorations away from source, which means towards density, away from purity, away from subtlety. Because source is the most subtle vibration, the most subtle frequency, the highest frequency. And as these expressions go further and further out, there begins to be the possibility of the expression itself getting lost into its expression, becoming seemingly separate from its source. It's not separate from its source, but within its own self-referential consciousness of itself, it can start to seem like, hey, I'm separate from my source. I have my own existence. And still, we're talking at a very abstract level here. But you could break down these extremely abstract expressions as those parts that know and are in full remembering that they are just expressions of source, and those aspects that become so engrossed in their expression that they lose track of their connection to source. And these aspects are in the process of remembering that they are of source, and it's in that extending out and falling back, extending out, falling back, extending out, falling back. Eventually this wears away any sense of substantial separation from source. And this story continues as we move outwards. This is the causal level that we're talking about, the layer closest to source, the causal level. These are vibrational spaces. Vibrational spaces, subtle vibrational spaces. And the vibrational spaces start to differentiate from one another just very subtly. Over here is some abstract quality like truth. And over here is another abstract quality like bliss. And over here is an abstract quality like compassion. And over here is an abstract quality like justice. So these are very abstract qualities. As this process continues, an expression is able to, it has this framework of vibrational spaces that are starting to become stabilized within themselves and contain certain abstract qualities. These abstract qualities, they start to almost be like it's like when you have raw wool and the process of rolling it and working the fibers until they start to become directional and they start to form threads. And this is sort of the juncture point between the causal realm of abstract vibrational spaces and the astral layer of expression, where consciousness starts to become self-aware to itself in these threads of consciousness. Threads of consciousness, and these threads form a vast network, a web, Indra's net. And these threads form points of contact with one another, and these form little nodes, little bubbles of consciousness. And this is where consciousness becomes even more expressed within itself, even more complexity, more density of expression than the causal layer, and more quality of information that can be interpreted in terms of its differences. This cord, this thread, has qualities that are different from this thread. And this is flowing consciousness that flows within itself. And this forms the gridwork for the whole reality that we see in our experience. This is the subtle scaffolding of the material universe. And then the astral expression becomes even more distinct between those parts of expression that are flowing in direct remembering of divinity, of the relationship to the divine and the pure awareness that is its source. So there's astral expression that flows directly from that knowing and reflects that knowing and those qualities, those divine qualities of remembering. And there's astral aspects that are even more defined in their sense of operating as separate from source. And there's still, everything here is subjective, so there is an I sense at this level. I am this, I am that. But the astral expressions that remember their connection to source know still that their I am sense, the I am sense there is of pure awareness, source. I am source expressing as this thread of consciousness. Yet there are parts of the astral web that are in the I am sense of I am this separate expression of consciousness, not connected to source. And that is a distortion. It's a distortion of consciousness, but it's a completely valid distortion that allows for further expression out into density. Without that forgetfulness, we don't have the framework to continue to foray further into expression. The next layer, we go through the aura of the human individual, which is a vibrational field that surrounds the body and forms an interface between the universal and collective expressions that we've gone through so far, the causal body, the astral body, the vibrational spaces of the causal, abstract vibrational spaces, woven down into the threads and nodes of the astral. Now interface into physiologies, not just human, animal, plant, any expression of embodied awareness in form that has now become more clearly defined in its separation. The aura and the physical vehicle. Now, the physical vehicle is part of the astral web. It has cords of light running through it, cords of conscious flow, specifically through the central channel, especially is the largest one, which expresses as the physical manifestation of the nervous system. And then you have the nadis that run through the body, channels of consciousness, flows of consciousness, and nodes wherever they intersect of consciousness, nodes and channels. In the yogic tradition, there's considered to be 108 different nodes, energy centers, and these are just the main ones. You could subdivide it into almost infinite, like a river delta. It's subdividing and subdividing and subdividing. If you just look at the image of the nervous system, it's a subdividing and subdividing and subdividing fractal network of flows. And that's the physical expression of what at the astral level is just flows of light, consciousness, information. 108 different nodes in the body and 108 different ways of transcending from the body into the field of source. So, from the astral, through the aura, to what become the first really personalized levels of subjectivity, which is the emotions. The emotions are vibrations, but again, another layer more expressed, another layer denser. So the vibration of the emotions is more dense than the astral level of expression. And it's also more personalized, my emotions. Yet, the emotions are constantly reflecting off of our environment and off of other bodies. So, my anger ripples out into my environment and does reflect off of other bodies and create emotional responses all around. This intelligence flows from the deeper layers of expression and is not separate from any other layer of manifestation. What is very intelligent and spontaneous. We do not control our emotions. They are just natural responses of our experience. Yet, we see here at the emotional body, we start to merge down into the mental body being a framework of thought forms. And these thought forms are, again, another layer denser than the emotions. And here's where we see, in our experience, the thought forms start to create belief systems and systems of control and manipulation, identification. So these are now my emotions. This means something about me. And they form a grid work that has the potential to start to block off the free flow of information and intelligence from source through causal, abstract layers of vibration, through the astral chords of flowing consciousness, through the aura, through the emotions, and into the density of the body. The mental field starts to create a grid work that can really gum up the flow of intelligence and really start to make it seem like I, as a body, am separate even from my environment, which we can see even on a scientific level is just not true, completely untrue. And yet mentally, we form a framework of understanding our experience that makes it seem like this is true and that we are separately responsible for our experience and that we have a life. All these things are mental constructs. And here's where we start to form negative self-identity. I'm weak. I'm unworthy. I've somehow lost love, because our ideas start to make us feel like we're no longer connected to source. And this can go up into, like I said, even at the astral level. You can be in the astral level and still feel separated from source. So it's repetitive. This ripples down through the layers. But in our experience, this is, as a human on Earth, this mental layer is really where you start to find those really kind of condensated thought fields that are making our experience seem very substantially separate. And underneath these thought forms, this is where we get those stuck emotions that almost seem to become stable, because the emotions in their natural state are actually just like flowing from source through the layers of becoming and are just like ripples and ruffles of intelligence and flow that actually guide the body through its environment and through relationships and through a life of refinement and enjoyment and fulfillment and learning. But when the condensated thought forms start to resist and try to control and manipulate experience, then you start to get these really chunky emotional experiences that are just kind of lodged in the body. Like, I'm not allowed to express this fear. I'm not allowed to express this anger. I'm not allowed to express this sadness. Why? Because it means something about me. It means something bad about me. So I have to reject it. Whenever this comes up, reject it. And this is what starts to form that substantial sense of separation from source. Oh, it's all part of the evolution of consciousness. So even this is not wrong, but it does form the roots of suffering in a profound way. Now, from the mental body, we come out to the etheric field, the etheric body. The etheric body is basically like a model of the physical. It's like a dream body. Like when we fall asleep into the dream state of shallow sleep, REM sleep, we're in a body there. This is an etheric body. It's like a template of the physical body, but made out of like energy, not physically manifest on the densest level. It's like a map of the body. In it also is related to the nervous system, and even the feelings, the sensations of the body are largely in this level. So the etheric body is implanted over the physical body through it. It's here now, like we have the etheric body maybe comes just a little tiny bit off of the physical body. So if you get into out-of-body experiences, things like this, you're traversing non-physical realms in an etheric form. And then out to the physical body, which is this dense, sensorial, corporeal form that seems so substantial, yet even on this level, it's just the densest expression of consciousness. So it still is just awareness, the process of observation and object. But it's that layered upon itself and layered upon itself and layered upon itself on these subtle scaffoldings all the way out to this densest level of cells and minerals and organs and blood and bone, brain. It's really all just information in awareness. Nonetheless, even the senses are some sort of informational expression, presentation of awareness, vibration, awareness, process of observation, object. The mistake we make on the mental level is thinking that the observer is the body, where really the observer has never been anything other than pure awareness, no matter how far out into expression we go. Because even if you go into the center of the senses, there's a mental sense of being someone here in the body, like I am the body and I'm aware of my five senses. But what is that one? This is where that self-inquiry goes. Well, it's a conglomeration of thought forms and maybe lodged emotional experiences. And what's aware of that? Well, again, it goes all the way back to the pure awareness where we started. So this is where we get those teachings like we've never left home. And yet the expression has gotten so complex and so engrossed into its presentation that we've actually become identified with objects within the presentation. So now we think the subject is the body, like the body is a subject unto itself, and the objects are things outside of itself, like a hat. The hat is an object, the body is the subject. But this is getting lost into the projective landscape. The subject has never been anything other than pure awareness, right from the get-go. And it takes a forgetting to become identified with the body as the subject. The body is an object. I am pure awareness, aware of the body. I'm aware of the sensations. I'm aware of the emotions. I'm aware of the thoughts. So, as we've come so far out all the way out to becoming identified as a body, eventually that becomes so limiting to consciousness that it becomes unbearable, unacceptable, and no longer interesting. And that's when the homeward journey starts. Like, what is this? This can't be it. This can't be all that I'm here for. There must be more. And this is actually just like a little niggling memory, a small voice in the head that never forgot where it came from. Never forgot where it came from. Never forgot that it's still the pure awareness at home with its mother, father, radiant, divine holiness that it started at. And so this starts the process of unraveling the false identity and coming back into these awareness practices where we start to resonate at the finer frequencies once again. At first, just in little pieces. Sometimes we have little awakening moments. It could be like a drug experience. Maybe you smoke weed, or even you get drunk and it just like depresses the mental framework for a moment and you just feel free all of a sudden again. This can be a remembering. But even more likely, some sort of psychedelic experience that just kind of blasts us open in the nervous system and opens the mind to the vaster awareness field for a period of time. And all of a sudden, we're just like seeing ourselves as though for the first time that what I've taken myself to be is actually just a conglomeration of qualities within awareness. And I'm here as awareness. I'm aware of myself. I'm aware of the patterns that I've identified with. And so I can't be those things. I can't be those things because I can see them all here as pure awareness. I can see everything that is made up. The Peter character is here available for me to look at. I can see it all. Like, I feel like I have to do this because of this. It's all just automatic and it's all within the pure awareness that I am. So then this becomes the most interesting thing to us, basically, the most alive inquiry. And so this is what consciousness becomes engaged in a human life, wearing away the limitations from the vaster field of awareness, going towards the subtle, preferring the subtlety, because the subtlety is contextual of the density. And so there's a greater feeling of freedom in the subtle, because the subtle contains the density. The density here being the emotions, the thought streams, the physicality. The physicality is the most limited form of consciousness, and yet it is still consciousness. It is still consciousness. But it's in its most limited state, and so when you become strongly identified there, it's so constricting for what you are, the pure awareness that you are, that never left its source, its only real relationship, which is it with the divine, and we're still vibrating there as the very source of what we are, even as we become physical. So we become more and more interested in dropping back from our experience just a little bit and allowing it to unfold within us. And then we see like we are the loving space that holds this expression of a life within us. And so then we can start to allow the intelligence to flow a little bit more naturally, a little bit more as it was designed to, and a little bit less as a separate, fearful controller, which was a fruitful exploration while it lasted. And we dipped into that and explored it, and we've harvested a lot of information from that experience. But as we fall back into the subtle, we become aware of these parts of ourselves that are actually harvesting the actual nutrients from this experience, rather than trying to find satisfaction within the limitation experience itself, because as you can see, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's addiction. It's repetition. It's a rat race. It's a hamster wheel. And yet that hamster wheel, there are nutrients within it, but only from the more contextual fullness, wholeness of awareness can we start to actually nourish ourselves with that experience. Because this is where we're really learning from, is from the context. Within the dream of being separate, we're actually just becoming more and more limited as we believe that more and more. And the deeper you go into it, the more you try to get something from it, the more real you're making it. And there's just nothing to get there. There's nothing to get within that little paradigm. But that doesn't mean there's not worth and value there. There is. There's great wisdom to be had in this experience. But in order to really become aware of that, we have to settle back into our wholeness. This is the part we've forgotten. This is the part we've forgotten. And this is our wholeness. Our wholeness which emanates from the pure divinity that we are. And the pure divinity that we are contextualizes everything that's expressed out from it. And now as we begin to remember, it's like waves lapping upon a shore for the first time. We're starting to experience our pure essence all the way out at the ends of our journey as a human physical expression. And divinity is so joyfully present to everything that's ever seemed to happen. But as it becomes present to it, it's dissolving it of every illusory sense of separation that seemed to separate it from source. And as the pure awareness touches upon all these shards of the sense of separation, it's eroding them, it's dissolving them, and they're like letting go of that sense of separate experiencing, and then the nutrients that were within it are freed out into the vaster consciousness system to be harvested by the truth of what we are. And this is like redemption. This is that redeeming love. As these cells of separation open to their source essence, then they remember from right within their own core, which at first was coated over and seemed separate. As that separation coating dissolves, it just sees itself. I'm still here. I'm still with myself in this perfect relationship with my source that I've never ever left. And this happens over and over again in every memory of lack, in every sensation of limitation, in every emotion of difficulty, of anger, of sadness, the sense that that means something negative about what you are is surrendered, and all that's left is the wholeness that has never left. All that's left is that perfect radiance of your relationship with Source. Now, we can start to remember this long before the process is completed. I mean, this could be an infinite ongoing process until every expression reflects nothing other than the perfect radiance of our divine oneness. So, this doesn't negate, this doesn't push away anything in our experience as wrong or bad. It includes everything into wholeness, every single thing into wholeness. And it's piecemeal in time, but in the eternity that we are, it is already complete. That paradox of already complete, and yet seemingly in process as we meet ourselves in every new situation, in every new expression of ourself, we have this opportunity to meet ourselves and free ourselves from self-limiting definitions of what we are. So, this has been an exploration of consciousness expressing itself within itself and exploring itself in this present moment awareness. It's such an enjoyable thing to do. And the speaking of it helps me stay so present to the process of it that it feels quite fruitful. And I'd like to continue doing it just as a refinement practice of consciousness coming to know itself. It's a multi-dimensional unfoldment, and we become aware of the purity as a vibration, and then that vibration of pure awareness becomes the groundwork for the refinement of every layer of expression, from the most subtle to the most dense, a process of inclusion. A process of inclusion. It includes the seeming density of the human lived experience. It includes it. It includes it. And through the inclusion of it is paradoxically the undoing of it in any sense of its substantiality in separation. Oh, you can see it's like a kaleidoscope. It's happening multi-dimensionally, and it is the embracing of the human experience without limitation that starts to free us from the sense of limitation. And into the purity of the one real relationship, which is the divine. We could call it divine mother, divine father, mother, father, divine, radiance, and pure awareness shining. including everything within itself. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.